Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is David Streams. I'm a Group Program Manager in Windows. I'm here today to talk about the sidebar. Extremely excited about this. We've been working hard on this thing, and I'm really pleased to see so many of you excited about the sidebar and possibility to write gadgets. Talked to a lot of you down on the show floor and everything, and let's just jump right in. Start showing you what we've got. Sidebar vision. So what are we doing with the sidebar? The sidebar is about enhancing the desktop productivity in Windows Vista. So the sidebar itself is a pane that can be docked to the right or left of your screen, and it really hosts gadgets. And you think of gadgets as mini applications. And these mini applications can be written in a number of ways, DHTML as well as WPF. And in the future, you may have heard the announcement about WPFE, the WPF everywhere. Going forward, that will also be a supported platform for building these gadgets. So when that ships, you'll have a very lightweight rendering engine that's a XAML subset that you can use for gadget development. So lots of interesting things. Today we're going to go through all those things. We're going to show you how to build WPF gadgets. We're going to show you how to build DHTML gadgets. I'll give you a demo of the sidebar, and then we'll save some time at the end for questions. The main thing about sidebar is that there's that was my first joke. One of the things we're doing is, some of the market trends we're seeing is hardware innovations like 16:9 monitors. People are using multiple monitor displays. And so we think this is a great time for the sidebar to come up because it will take up less screen real estate. We're very focused on performance, overhead, and optimizing the experience in terms of memory. Another interesting point to make is the developer support. You're not going to have to relearn or learn new technologies to be able to build these gadgets. You can use Visual Studio to build your WPF code. When you're designing these gadgets, you can use the Sparkle products and products from third parties to design the gadget interface. And if you're doing DHTML gadgets, you can use whatever tools you're comfortable with to build these things. So you can leverage the tools that you have at your disposal, and there's actually a very small delta, things that you have to add to actually get these gadgets to run. So why don't I just jump in and show you a demo. So as I mentioned, the sidebar is a pane that docks to the right or left, and it's a host for gadgets. So we have a number of gadgets running here. I'm sure a lot of you probably saw it in the keynote the other day. Here's a gadget that basically is a launcher application. These gadgets can have settings so that you can configure settings. So in this case, I might want to point to, I don't know, like music or a slide presentation, or in this case, maybe just Notepad. You can configure the gadget and then use it to launch applications. We have a clock, and you can see the great graphics. We have the per pixel alpha, so it's rendering alpha blending with the desktop very nicely. You can also see that gadgets can actually be dragged off of the sidebar, and they can float on your desktop. I have a slideshow gadget here. We're also leveraging RSS here. We have an RSS gadget that you can that will work with the RSS platform that we're shipping. What I'm showing you now is a gadget picker. So this is where any gadgets you have installed will be accessible from this picker. You can easily add new gadgets to the sidebar by just double-clicking, and in the future we'll add some support for additional features like drag and drop. Here I have an email gadget. So you can quickly monitor your email, see what important messages you might have, if you have flagged messages, unread messages. The sidebar is all about glanceable data. So here, instead of having Outlook up all the time, I can just basically monitor the number of emails that I have. We have tooltips display here so that it'll tell you how many unread messages, and then you can click and pop a new window to show you some other emails. Many of you probably saw the gadget at the keynote on Monday, or on Tuesday rather, this media player gadget. And so you can see that we support rich animations. It's all about visual pop and visual styling. And so as you're going to see, that's all about what like WPF's about. And so we have rich tools to support in Avalon to support building like interesting animations, 2D and 3D things, and you can bring that into your gadget development and build gadgets such as this. There's other options as well with Sidebar. So, for example, if you don't want the sidebar to kind of take up screen real estate, by default, we have a mode where Windows actually maximize over the sidebar. And alternatively, you can go into a mode where the sidebar's put so that it's always on top, and it will dock right up next to side the windows. Also, we have the ability, we have different modes so that you can actually eject all of the gadgets right off of the sidebar and actually hide the sidebar itself. So I'll just jump back to some slides. So that was just a very quick overview of the sidebar. Let's talk a little bit about the difference between gadgets and sidebar. So gadgets, again, is this notion of a lightweight application. It's really task specific. So these are not full-blown applications. They're very focused on a particular task. At a high level, there's a number of types of gadgets. We're going to see lots of gadgets for information. So tying into web services, you're going to see stock gadgets, weather gadgets, RSS, etc. There's also, I think you're going to see a lot of gadgets which integrate with applications. So, again, going back to the point about information overload, you use like an ERP application during the day, hundreds and hundreds of forms. You're just constantly inundated with data. How many times during the day, for example, do you just need one little piece of information and you have to instantiate a full-blown app, or you have to go to a website and navigate around? The whole premise of gadgets is to give you quick, glanceable data. And so, again, lightweight applications give you the information, integrate with services, integrate with other applications. Another type of gadget, utility gadgets. So you might want to have quick, glanceable data off of your system, your desktop. So I might want to see what my battery meter is. Or how many times you had a problem on the PC, you call help desk, and you need quick access to something like your MAC address on your PC or IP address, and you have to go to command and pop a window, IP config all. Build a gadget. We actually inject an object model in to give you really easy access to these the system information through Windows external call. We'll show you that in a little while as well. Sidebar then, so switching from gadgets to sidebar. Sidebar is a manager for gadgets. So the gadget picker that you saw that allows you to select gadgets, so to install gadgets, uninstall gadgets, is the sidebar. The object host. So I mentioned that we support really two classes or two types of gadgets. You have the DHTML gadget, and then you have the WPF type gadgets. Gadgets can be multi-instance. I didn't show you that in the demo, but you can, for example, let's say I have an RSS gadget, and I want to configure 3 instances of that gadget for different feeds, and then have that on the desktop. The sidebar will manage those instances. It manages all of the system state information, so that the settings. So it enumerates through the list of gadgets that you have on the sidebar, and then saves out the setting information or the configuration information locally. So earlier today, there's a talk on Start.com. Start.com has just announced they have incredibly interesting website where and it's actually way more than a website, it's a platform. You can build DHTML/Atlas gadgets, so you can fully leverage the Atlas class libraries or I guess it's just JavaScript helper libraries to be able to build Ajax-like functionality into your gadgets. These gadgets, these DHTML gadgets, are hosted on Start.com. And later I'll point you to a site, windowsgadget.com, where you can, is a jumping off point for both building sidebar gadgets as well as Start.com gadgets. But what's interesting, Start.com hosts these gadgets. They'll run inside of IE or Firefox, different browsers. They're fully leverageable on the sidebar. So the sidebar also supports DHTML Atlas gadgets. And so you'll be able to leverage all of the code that you're writing for start.com gadgets to build gadgets for Sidebar. So for example, you build a stock gadget that'll monitor your favorite stocks. You deploy it to start.com. You'll be able to package it up and install it and make it visible and render inside of the sidebar as well. And we're also working on building some deeper integration with the start.com team. You'll see some of these features in V1, some of the features will be later, but things like drag and drop metaphors. So being able to drag a start.com gadget into sidebar, make the sidebar kind of a drop target. We can hydrate a gadget and persist it there for you. At the very least, have a button in the start.com gadget that says, run on desktop or run in sidebar. You click that, it'll download it, hydrate the gadget, run inside of the sidebar. So some really interesting and powerful scenarios. Other scenarios, like being able to roam your settings, is another one that we're looking at. So wouldn't it be cool if you could configure your gadgets in start.com up in the web experience, save all of that state, or the settings, I should say, and then when you add that gadget to the sidebar, to be able to leverage that and basically bring down those settings so that you don't have to reconfigure your settings, so roaming settings. So we're thinking about all kinds of innovative scenarios and synergies between start.com and Sidebar. So also in Sidebar then, we have the Windows Presentation Foundation support. It's a premier way to build gadgets, especially gadgets where you want really rich functionality, animations, 2D, 3D, lots of amazing things that many of which we probably haven't even thought, if you definitely haven't thought up yet. So real important question that I want to answer right up front is, why should you invest in gadget development? So as I kind of alluded to earlier, I think there's already a big need for lightweight applications because of this, the fact that we're just inundated with information. We have lots of applications running all the time. You're constantly having to instantiate browsers and navigate around, when all we really want a lot of times is very simple targeted data that then I can act upon. So going back to the ERP app example, out of all these hundreds of forms, I might just want to see the state of a workflow and monitor that. And I can do that in a gadget that I can build, leveraging again all the code I've written in WPF. I can very easily extend that metaphor over to gadgets. Build a gadget that will allow me to monitor maybe my workflows. And based on then the data that I'm kind of monitoring while doing my job, I can click on it. You can then instantiate the full app, or you can build widgets that do interesting things. So maybe like progressively disclose more information. So maybe it shows me the status of a work item. I hover over it, and a little flyout gives me more information about that workflow. If I click on that, it would instantiate the full app. And then I mentioned also more screen real estate. You've got 16:9 displays, multi-mod configurations. Let's optimize the way we use our screen real estate. And again, Sidebar is flexible so that it can go behind other windows. It doesn't have to be kind of in your face all the time. We're looking at adding features so that you can pin gadgets to the desktop so that they're always on top, or you can push them back to the desktop as well. You also see other innovations like auxiliary displays. I don't know if any of you saw the Sideshow demonstration and talk. But they have a gadget platform as well, and technologically today we're not completely aligned. But going forward, we're looking at ways that we can integrate the gadget platform so that we can realize additional scenarios. So bringing data, for example, from start.com into Sidebar. Sidebar, that data can go down to your auxiliary display. So even when your machine is powered off and you have access to this auxiliary display, you still have access to this glanceable data, which is so important to us. So how are gadgets installed? How are gadgets developed? It's actually really, really simple. Gadgets are installed on the client machine in the current user's gadget directory. And a gadget is nothing more than a package. It can be one of three things. It can be just a directory, which makes it really low bar for development. You just basically create a directory and throw the different artifacts that make up your gadget into it. And once it's in the gadget directory, it's considered installed. You could have a zip file. Use your WinZip, whatever tools you want to build that file. You might distribute it as a cab file because you want to digitally sign the gadget. What you're going to do is put a gadget extension on that, and then the shell knows how to install the gadget. So once I, create my zip file for my gadget, I could distribute it out to, on the web. I could put it out in email. Somebody double clicks on it because it's a .gadget file. The shell will know how to handle that. It'll install it. It'll give you there'll be some security prompts based on what the gadget actually needs to be able to do, and then presuming that the user allows it to be installed, it will be installed to gadget directory, and then it's simply visible in the gadget picker when the user instantiates that feature from the sidebar. So it's a very, very simple model. And I mentioned gadgets can be multi-instance, and then the settings themselves are stored locally in the gadget directory. So the sidebar is always tracking which gadgets you have running and storing the settings that the user applies to them. So let's talk about this gadget package. So inside of the directory or the zip file or the cab file, what is actually there? What do I need to build these gadgets? The first thing is the gadget.xml file. And you can think of this as basically kind of like a manifest for the gadget. So it's going to contain a reference to an icon, and the icon's what's going to represent your gadget in the gadget picker. So when somebody goes to install the gadget, or once they've installed the gadget, they go to run the gadget, the icon will be there. We track versioning information there, both for the gadget as well as the sidebar runtime. You're going to define the gadget type information. Right now, it's two choices. So it'll either be a DHTML type or it'll be an Avalon type. Security requirements will also be defined. So we'll have some flags that you can set to define the level of security that your gadget's going to require to run on the system. And then a URI to basically for the name of the gadget. The other thing you're going to find in this bundle is a UI presentation. So if it's a DHTML gadget, you're going to have an HTML file. If it's an Avalon or WPF gadget, then the UI presentation would be the XAML that's compiled into the binary and would thus be inside of this package. Any resources you have, so PNG files, localized strings, etc., are going to be in the package. The controller code, so the actual behavior, the code for the gadget, if it's DHTML based, this will be in a series of JavaScript files, and if it's Avalon, again, that'll be your CS file that's compiled with the XAML and then distributed inside of this package. And then finally, the actual PNG or JPEG for the icon that was referenced up in the gadget.xml. So I should probably point out what gadgets are not. Gadgets aren't full applications. So if you look for them in the Start menu, you're not going to find them. If you're running 10 gadgets on the desktop and you Alt-Tab around, you're not going to see them there because they're not full-blown apps. So you're not, they don't have menus and toolbars and minimize, maximize buttons. And they're also not web pages. We don't navigate to them. We actually install them, load them, and run them. So let's talk about Windows Presentation Foundation. How many of you guys have seen one or more talks this week on Windows Presentation Foundation? Awesome. So almost everybody in the room. I'm extremely excited about just what this holds. The amazing technology, and I think it really applies to building gadgets because, quite frankly, especially when you see the demo that I'm going to give you on how to build these gadgets, you're going to quickly find it's not rocket science to build gadgets. When you build the logic for these gadgets, it's very, very simple. The challenge, I think, in building gadgets is really around the UI and the presentation. If you think about it, these gadgets about 150 pixels wide. So how do you make it interesting and compelling to show data, to visualize it? Sometimes you might want to use animations, 2D, 3D. And WPF gives you, all of these options and more. And the fact that they cleanly separate this, so they allow designers to really participate in this by using things like Sparkle, and they're generating their XAML. And then they can, the developers in Visual Studio that write in the CS files can write all of the logic separately from the presentation. So I know we've done a lot of work prototyping out some gadgets, and it's really exciting to be able to enable designers to do what they do best. And now they have the tools, they'll have Sparkle and other tools from third parties to be able to generate really interesting XAML with awesome animations, 2D, 3D, so that you can create gadgets like the media player gadget that you saw, and hundreds, thousands more that we haven't even thought up yet. And again, then the great tools for developers and designers. I mean, the fact of the matter is you can use the tools you have to build gadgets, and there's very little that you have to do outside of that environment to make the gadget run. And I'll go ahead and give you a demo in just a minute. So this is just, again, a reinforcement. On the left, you're seeing that the CS file, so your application logic, if you're building a WPF application, you're going to use Visual Studio, you're going to write your code. You're going to then work with or define the presentation tier with XAML using those tools. And you can combine it together into and compile it into an application that you distribute to the desktop. So you can distribute. What's different about building a gadget? Not a lot. I mean, you're still your CS file. So your logic for your gadget, build it out in Visual Studio. Use your XAML tools to build the presentation layer. So draw the gadget, draw out the behaviors, and write your XAML to basically build your animations, etc. You're going to combine that together with the CS, compile it into your binary, and then you're going to put that binary into the gadget package. And the only additional things you need are the gadget.xml that we talked about, and then you just apply a .gadget extension to the zip file or the cab file, and away you go. I mean, it's really that easy. So to kind of summarize, WPF gadgets are written just like you would write a full-fledged WPF application with a couple minor changes, and I'll show those to you in a demo in just a second. So you really get to harness the full power of WPF. So all the class libraries that you have in the framework available to you, you can use for developing your gadget. And then that gadget is packaged up inside of or that application binary is packaged inside of the .gadget. So essentially, we have a gadget window that you make your root element in your WPF application. And when you do that, then you can hook into certain sidebar-specific events and functionality. So when your gadget undocks from the sidebar and it's floating, you can write code to handle that event. There'll also be settings. So there's the notion of common gadget settings that'll be available into the WPF. So common gadget settings are things like, I was talking about the ability to pin a gadget or set basically its Z order, push it back to the desktop. If we have features like changing the opacity, these are things that are common to all gadgets, and that'll be available and just automatically show up in a dialog for that gadget. And then, of course, inside of WPF, or Visual Studio, I should say, you can then define your own developer provided settings. So in the example of the RSS feeds, you can write in the settings dialog so that you have the ability to enumerate the list of feeds that you subscribe to in the RSS platform. And then based on the user selection, that becomes the default setting for that RSS feed so that the gadget knows what service to go out and hit. So let's take a quick look at building an Avalon gadget or WPF gadget. Looks like it keeps chopping it off here. Hopefully we can get the resolution fixed. So the first thing I'm going to show you, this is basically a XAML page. So I've got an animating clock here. It's all vector based. So looks awesome. Oh, the refresh rate, except, yeah.
Looks awesome up here.
Yeah, it does. You guys all want to come up? We can form a line and just kind of come by the stage. Let's take a look at the code real quick. So it's XAML. There's a page, the view box, grid, and then we basically have vector graphics and some animations defined. What I want to focus on is, okay, I've got this cool XAML page. I want to turn that into a gadget. I want that clock to show up in the sidebar. So what do I have to do? So there's good news. Very few things you have to do. So First thing I'm going to do is just remove this, basically change the root element from page to gadget window. Go ahead and change. That's pretty much it. I then would recompile the XAML, and essentially it'll even handle setting up the default window size so that when this appears in the sidebar, it's going to be the 150 pixels wide. Okay, so let's go ahead and build this clock gadget. So as I mentioned to you, if you go to the gadgets directory, this is where all the gadgets live that are installed. And I'm just going to go ahead and build a new gadget. We're going to call it clock. Go ahead and keep it a zip file for now. So on my desktop here, I have a clock PNG, and this is going to serve as my icon for the gadget, so that when I'm choosing it from the part picker, I know what I'm grabbing. I'm going to drag that into the clock.zip. I then have a clock executable. This is the compiled XAML, and I'm going to drag that in to clock.zip. And then I have my gadget XML file. So why don't we take a real quick look at what that code looks like. Pretty simple. There's not a lot that you have to do. We have the gadget type, which I mentioned. There's two choices. There's DHTML, or in this case, we're building a WPF-based gadget. So the gadget type is WPF. The name of the gadget is clock. This is what's going to show up in the part picker, or the gadget picker. The icon that I just drug in there is clock PNG. And the code base, or the code path to the executable, clock.exe, so it knows to instantiate the clock.exe, do a shell execute. I also put in the gadget version information, so it's a version 1.0. It's also going to be related to the sidebar, version 1.0. This is also where I would set security flags that I want to set. In this case, we're just going to run with full trust enable for the gadget. That's literally it. So I have now all the components needed so that when I go ahead to run my clock gadget, it will go ahead and show up in the sidebar. I added some other CS in there as well so that now it's actually telling real time. It's not animating wildly as well. So that is all you have to do to build a WPF gadget. Actually, there is one other thing I wanted to show you, just to show the possibilities. We're messing around some other things, prep for the demo. I showed you a XAML page. Let me show you this is a XAML application, or a WPF application. This shows off some of the 3D rendering, and we've got reflection, and basically we've created a photo cube. So it's basically applying these photographs to the cube and then animating it, rotating. So again, going through the same process I just showed you, I can build a gadget version of that WPF application. You can see it here in the sidebar, and I can drag it off. And you can see that when I drag it off, it's actually fully alpha blending with the desktop. Looks really good. There's a few jaggies here. It's just due to a known bug we know about in terms of using hardware acceleration and a layered window. It's what we use within the sidebar. But again, the key is it's just really simple to build these gadgets if you already know how to build a WPF application. Okay, so now that we've talked about WPF, let me spend a few minutes talking about DHTML gadgets. So 99% of the platform is the same between, in terms of capabilities, between DHTML and WPF. I mentioned that you have various events which are injected into HTML so that you can handle things like, as my gadget undocks, I can handle that event. So Maybe I want to resize the gadget and take advantage of additional screen real estate that I didn't have when I was docked. The other thing we inject in within the object model is easy access to basic system information. So, for example, I want to just do a simple window external call to get display information. Or the example I used earlier, I want to build a gadget that really just shows like my IP address of my machine, or I want to see the battery, build a battery meter. We give you access to lots and lots of different system APIs through our object model. And we also then have support for create objects so that you can basically interact with any installed scriptable objects on your system. So that actually, even without the system OM, you could use create object and like WMI to get to any system information that may not be actually in our object model. So it's really flexible programming model. So I brought up Bubba Mararka, who's a lead program manager on our team, and he's going to give a little demo of building DHTML-based gadgets.
Thanks, David. Good job. Yeah. Good. Come on, I'll give you a little round of applause. Baby! Getting ready to ship this thing. All right. Oh, wow. Eventually. My name is Bubba Mararka, and like David said, I've heard to talk to you a little bit about DHTML gadgets. I'm pretty pumped. Obviously, WPF has some awesome stuff in it, and really looking forward to getting to play with that. But I wanted to build some stuff today, and so we're going to show you some of what you can do in DHTML. And you might have noticed, we were doing all these. David was showing these great demos on Vista, and I love Vista, and I can't wait to get to use it every day. But right now, I wanted to start using stuff on XP. So I thought, I'd play around and get a sidebar working on XP. So we got a sidebar working on an XP, which should be pretty cool, right, David?
Yeah.
Woo!
Cat's out of the bag now.
All right, cat's out of the bag. But we're Justin, my PR guy's over there looking at me like, what the heck are you doing? But we've got sidebar working on XP, and we're looking forward to getting it out along with Vista. So you can start building gadgets today, and they'll be working both on XP and Vista.
Well, shortly, Bob. Shortly.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
We didn't
shortly, not today.
Yeah,
you told me not to say that, and I didn't say
That's all right.
But it will be out shortly. But I wanted to show you kind of one of the gadgets and deconstruct how we got to how it was built was an RSS reader. And this was actually built, or an RSS feed viewer. And this was actually built by a PM on our team. So he was just hacking around and building some stuff. And the cool thing about this is it'll all hook up into Start, and you can reuse your RSS feeds. And if you went and saw Scott Isaacs, who's sitting down here in the front row, his talk about Atlas and whatnot, some really cool stuff we can do there. But this feed reader actually works right here in IE. So there it is. It's just cruising along. You can actually see it's working just fine. But with a little voodoo magic, you can actually get it to work and float, attach the sidebar, and everything else. And let me show you guys how to do that. So what you want to do is actually very similar to what we did with what David showed you guys with WPF. What you're going to do is you're going to write a gadget.xml file, and that's just going to basically be a specification file that tells you some stuff. Open this up in Visual Studio. And it's a real simple XML schema. It's just going to say, hey, here's the file. Oh, it'll come up. It's going to give us what the HTML source page is locally, what the background color is to actually make the thing transparent with. And it's also going to kind of give us a little bit of the icon information and whatnot so you can actually find it in the picker. And then you can just pull them up, just like that. Whoop. Then you can have multiple ones, multiple instances. They'll all just kind of float around, pointing to different directions. And the cool thing about this is, again, all the information, all the tools you've used to write these in DHTML for DHTML coders out there, JavaScript coders out there, those can transfer right today. And you can start working with people to build on top of great JavaScript frameworks such as the Atlas stuff that the Visual Studio and the Start.com team have been doing, using other people's JavaScript tools and packages. And real quick, I'll just jump in to show you guys this is not all hocus pocus. This is literally some HTML. And so we're just basically using CSS, some HTML, and I'm sure everyone's had their phone with JavaScript, so I'm not going to go deep dive. But this is really powering it. So if you guys want to come by and check it out, we'll be playing with this. One thing, how many of you guys like eye candy? I'm a big bling guy. Okay. So this is a little early, and I'm sure it's working in a test framework. But I wanted to show you guys something really cool that we were able to put together in DHTML. Is that okay, David? Sure. All right.
I think.
So here it is. So here's the gratuitous weather widget, gadget, thingy.
Little paint problem.
Little paint problem. Yeah, it's a little paint problem. But this is actually DHTML. This is working today, and you can add in, let's see. We'll go for our favorite folks up in Redmond, 98052. You can hit go. Oh, there's the clouds. So you can also do some other cool stuff. I think this should work. I just wired this up. Actually, I shouldn't say I did it. This is really a super rock star on my team who stayed up and worked on this. But everyone wants to know what time of day it is. You know where they are, maybe. So let's see. No. This will hopefully be automatic soon. But let's go to my zip code. But now with the new time, notice it's 3 in the morning now where I'm at in San Francisco. We're actually going to go ahead and change it. Let you know where it is. That'll actually change according to the sky. So, DHTML lets us do these cool things today. And once we get WPF, we can start doing these awesome animations. We can start doing stuff that David showed with the Windows Media Player gadget. And I don't know, altogether, I'm just excited about having a desktop that lets me do cool things, lets me show the information, get access to everything I want quickly, as well as have some fun and decorate it the way I want it to. So we're working together to vet this out as soon as we can and on XP and rocking in the Vista world. So that's what I wanted to show real quick. I'm a quick kind of guy.
Nice. Thanks, Bubba.
Thanks, David.
So everybody's favorite topic. Saved it for towards the end. Security. So multiple security trust levels with gadgets. If you're doing a DHTML gadget, we're going to support the internet zones security model. So just like a web page in IE, basically run with very low writes, and then basically the developers, through setting flags in the gadget.xml file, can request additional rights to be given. And then there'll be UI, of course, that pops up for the user to basically give them, to allow them to opt in to giving the additional levels of trust to the gadget. If you build a WPF gadget, we're going to be using the .NET Code Access Security model. And so a lot of this is to come. We're going to be hooking this up, and when we deliver bits to you towards the latter part of this year, we'll have security going in there. Sidebar gadgets can be completely localized. So if you build a gadget and you want to support 4, 5, 6, 10, 20 languages, whatever you want to do, we certainly support that. So you can just create directories that contain your localized strings. And the OS will be smart about loading the appropriate language based on the language that you have in the OS, and it has the appropriate fallback chain so that if your particular language isn't supported, it'll fall back until it gets to the root, which would be the default language. Versioning and manageability. So mentioned earlier, we version a couple things inside of the gadget.xml file. You put a version tag on your gadget. We also version against the sidebar platform itself. And if you install a gadget that already exists, we're going to pop up some UI to the end user so that they can basically compare the version, the author, URI, and then prompted to replace it or ignore it. So I mentioned earlier, the main place you want to go to kind of stay abreast of what's happening is the MicrosoftGadgets.com site. Right now, we're going to be adding things, basically a wiki. It'll become a large resource for developing these gadgets. You can go up there today to get an overview of what it's all about. And it's also a jumping off point for things like start.com. And you can also get information on building sideshow gadgets as well. So all things gadgets are up here. Again, beta 2 timeframe is when we're gonna ship you bits. We'll get them to you as soon as we possibly can, and wish I could have given them to you today. But hopefully you'll stick with us. I think there's some amazing opportunities here to build gadgets. I think there's a low bar. It should appeal to a lot of folks. Low bar for development. And so with that, I'd like to welcome any questions that you might have about building gadgets. We have Scott Isaacs here too, so if you had questions about start.com, we'd be happy to take those as well. If you do have questions, I encourage you to come up to the middle mic, and we'll take those. Okay. So the question is, WPF app gadgets running their own address space? Yes, that is correct. So we basically execute the gadget. It'll run in its own process. Yes. So the question is, what's the process model for DHTML-based gadgets? So DHTML, there's basically sidebar will run in 2 or 3 processes. There will be a sidebar process that hosts the Microsoft delivered gadgets. There'll be then a low rights sidebar process, which will host gadgets, and each gadget will then have its own thread. And it'll host any gadgets that are running with restricted permissions. And then there'll be another process that's spawned to host any gadgets with elevated privileges. Those will also run in their own threads.
So my question is, the sidebar, if you don't want that, can you remove that from the desktop?
So the question is, can I remove sidebar from the desktop? Absolutely. Make it easy to turn off. We'll also support group policy. So IT administrators will have a way to turn off sidebar. And we'll look at, going forward, other features that we could add to group policy to make that even more flexible so that they could perhaps filter the types of gadgets that are installed or specific gadgets that are installed. We'll also support the IE kill bit. So if there are malicious gadgets, we can ensure that those aren't able to run.
So I just want to...
Bubba?
Okay, and one other thing to add is the sidebar will support both, David kind of talked about always on top. It'll support kind of slide away and come back, as well as supporting other apps layering on top of it. So it'll be as unintrusive as you want it to be.
So I just want to confirm, so sidebar is not in the build 5219
build. That's correct. Sidebar is not in that build. We're going to deliver it separately in the beta 2 timeframe.
Okay.
And so if you watch the Microsoft Gadgets website, we'll be sure to keep that updated.
On the zip file or cab file for delivery, is it one gadget per zip file? So if you wanted to build a collection of related gadgets, would you have to put each one in its own separate zip file?
If you just kept the .zip extension, you could extract multiple gadgets to the gadget directory. But if you kept the .gadget extension on it, I think it would probably be one per.
I noticed that you install gadgets to current user directory. Do you support installing to all user directory?
The question is, do we support gadgets that are in the all users directory? We're going to support both because when we deliver gadgets, out of the box, we'll have some number of gadgets that we ship from Microsoft, and those will reside in all users. And then we'll also grep the current user directory as well. So.
Nice question, John.
Oh, you did?
With the gadgets in the zip file and the cab file, are they actually extracted and put in the gadgets folder, or they run straight from the archive?
Are the gadgets? I'm sorry.
If you make a zip file with a gadget and you rename it .gadget, is it extracted and run from the folder?
Yes, it is the gadget file. The zip file is extracted by the shell, so it knows how to handle the .gadgets and or the gadget package and install that into the gadget directory.
And then the zip file goes away.
You're right.
All right.
Okay, my question was about how you guys showed how you could drag them out to the desktop.
Mhm.
Now, say I'm working on a couple of programs and I want to view that information. Is there a hotkey I can press to show it and then to hide it again?
We're looking at that feature, actually. Kind of bring all gadgets to front, all
Right.
floating gadgets to front. I can't promise it for V1, but we hope to have it.
I have another question. There's other programs similar to this. Will you guys have any support for like maybe importing those gadgets instead of having to rewrite, every gadget because there's some that are.
So Microsoft currently doesn't have any plans to write such a thing, but in case of like DHTML, it's just DHTML, so I'm sure other people could figure something out.
All right.
I have a couple of questions. One question is about the sidebar for Windows XP. You mentioned that there will be such thing shipped, right?
That's correct.
That is correct.
Right. Would it be shipped as a commercial, just a regular part for the OS, or it will be just for testing and development?
It would be an add-on to the XP OS, so it's something you could download and install.
There'll be a
Great.
program from Microsoft that installs on
Right.
Windows XP.
Excellent. And you also mentioned that there will be some system classes exposed for DHTML gadgets, right? Do you have already an SDK that describes what exactly is exposed, how it's exposed, and everything else?
Sure. We're going to be posting a lot of information on the Windows Gadget website today. We don't, or Microsoft Gadget website, thank you. We don't have anything up there today, but you can expect to find that. I'd be really interested in any feedback that you have on what you'd like to see in the OM. We'll also be, it's a good point I wanted to make earlier, we'll also have things like style guides and things that we're going to put up on the Microsoft Gadget site, so best practices, et cetera, for designing these things.
Right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there any support for gadgets finding each other and talking to each other?
Question is, in gadgets, inter-gadget communication. No, we don't have support for that feature.
In response to the question about the DHTML hosting, the process model there, you said something about 3 threads.
3 processes.
3 processes.
Up to 3. Yeah.
That's in addition to a process per WPF-based gadget, or 3
Mhm.
processes total? Okay, so the threading model in a gadget is the same threading model as in any WPF application. I'm talking about, UI painting kinds of things.
Right. Well, right.
We don't have to worry about you putting this in a thread that isn't the UI thread and we're hosted by
Correct.
the sidebar app. Okay.
Right.
Because you did that last time.
Oh, you mean the other sidebar? Which one? The which old one?
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Question about you said it's when you install it, it's given to the current user and you're thinking of putting it into all users. What's to keep it from us just going in and opening it? You said something about security that time. Is it part of the Windows register or the
Windows registry? No, so what would your concern be in terms of?
I guess when we program
Mhm.
such a gadget and we deploy it out, what's to keep other people from taking it? I know you said about security, but I'm still not entirely familiar with it. And the other thing is, when we put it on there and we do want everybody to look at it, why can't we just go to a zip folder
Sure.
and
So,
open it up?
so there's several questions in there. So
Yeah.
I think what one of them was about protecting your IP, maybe? Was that you don't want people to see into the gadget that you've distributed?
That's one. And the
Okay.
other is when you do want everybody to use it, why do you need to go through the installation when it's just from what I see, it's an XML file and you put it into a zip file. So why go through that when you could just open it up like HTML?
So some of these plans are still a little bit of a moving target, but
Yeah.
the purpose of the all users is actually to be able to deliver the gadgets from Microsoft out of the box. And so
Okay.
there could be the potential that we would lock it down so that we would recognize the gadgets that were signed by Microsoft. And all other gadgets are installed to the user gadget, the current user gadget folder.
Okay. But I noticed that they're all in, for instance, XML files. Do you actually put it into exe later, or is that something? Maybe I need to formulate the question better.
Why don't we catch up
about it.
afterwards and we can hash it
But
out?
yeah,
That sound
thank
good? Cool.
Yeah, hi. I have just two questions. I'll ask you some other questions off the mic here. Number one, the bulge. I'm going to be honest, the first days of PDC when they showed it at Keynote, it looked broken. I mean, the controls are bleeding over the edge. It looks like crap. Are we going to see... I'm being honest.
No, please do.
Are we going to see like dynamic resizing of our gadgets when we install them, maybe, to fit the sidebar bulge?
So two questions. The first is about the curved sidebar versus a straight sidebar.
Correct.
So it's interesting because we've talked to a lot of people here, and you get about 50-50. It's a love-hate thing. So some people just can't stand that. It's just that, as you said, it kind of looks broken to them. I think the motivation in that design, I'm not on the design team per se, but basically was to show that by some of these gadgets kind of hanging off the edge, it suggests that they can be drug off of the sidebar. We'll look at all the customer feedback, and if it's a bad sign that The other thing I should mention too is when the sidebar is kind of always on top. When you maximize a window, it will straighten out.
Okay.
So it's only like that when there aren't windows maximized against it.
Okay. And the second question was a lot easier. Are there going to be like standardization rules or some kind of like guidelines to developing?
Absolutely. So there won't be hard requirements.
Okay.
I mean, just like applications, you can build a bad gadget, and we just make it easy for people to uninstall and turn them off. But we'll certainly have style guides.
Okay.
But we'll certainly have style guides so that, and all the gadgets that Microsoft delivers and makes available on the website and whatnot will adhere to those style guides.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
Sure.
Hi. My question relates to persistence of the settings on the sidebar. When you shut down, if you have multiple instances of a gadget there, is that maintained within the sidebar itself, or does the gadget have to handle that?
So when you shut down the sidebar, there's two parts. If you shut down an instance, those settings are lost, and when you reinstantiate the gadget, it'll go to the last settings that you had for that gadget. If I have multiple instances of the sidebar and I shut down the OS and reboot, the settings file will store the settings for all three instances. So you'll get those all back.
Thanks.
Sure.
Fairly quickly, one of the questions that we've raised in looking at some of this is we've thought of using a gadget as sort of a status panel for our application. And it would have the lifetime of our application. When the user logs in, this would pop up and go down. Is that really outside of the model things that you've been thinking of for gadgets and so forth? It would need to have some sort of communication back to an application, and as far as lifetimes and that kind of stuff.
No, I think that's right inside of the boundaries. You have a lot of, fits in that category of gadgets that might integrate well with applications. So if you have like a WPF app, .NET app, you want to display some information or notifications in that gadget, you could certainly do that. I think that's a great use for them.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
So you mentioned with the DHTML gadgets that you can restrict where they go using zones. Is that true for the WPF ones as well?
So WPF will have security, multi-level security, that will subscribe to the, we're not going to introduce a new security model to you. So we're going to use the .NET Code Access Security model and apply that to WPF-based gadgets.
But does that prevent somebody from, let's say, having like a Sesame Street gadget and you downloaded it and it ends up being porn because it goes to some porn site and grabs porn? In that instance, there's...
Yeah. Hadn't thought of that scenario.
Well, I mean, it's just, you have kids, and you might have one that doesn't destroy your system, but it might.
If I thought of it in a DHTML type sense, I know that the user would get a notification of where, the information, what domain you're going to be communicating with, right? And so hopefully, although if it's a Sesame Street gadget, they might not be able to read the warning, and then you'd have problems. But the security.
Well, I mean, if I may jump in.
Sure.
The other thing is, I mean, realize that the way you're going to get gadgets is, through an online community of sorts, so bad gadgets will also quickly become known, assuming the community hasn't all collaborated to distribute Sesame Street. Whoa. Okay, you're going back to answering.
Thank you.
Man.
For the WPF version, in terms of debugging in Visual Studio, are you going to treat that as first-class citizen?
So debugging, like all parts of the development cycle with WPF-based gadgets, it is a first-class citizen because you're doing it all in Visual Studio. So you have all the debugging and deployment tools there, and then think of the steps for the gadget. Then are just kind of post-process. Like once you have your application, your binary, it's just really an exercise of packaging it up inside of the .gadget bundle, so to speak.
Okay, and in terms of personalization, how are preferences saved in the gadget? And then also, is it able to, can I be able to push in a background and bring it up to the foreground, like some of the program that we have today?
Sure. So there's really two parts to it. There's the user-defined settings that you as a developer have full control over. So if you're building a WPF gadget, you would designate and have some portion of the settings dialog that you own to handle configuring that gadget, right? And then there'll be a kind of a common portion of that window that'll be for gadget, like global type settings that aren't gadget specific, or they're common to all gadgets, I should say. And one of those might be, we haven't implemented this feature yet, but being able to set where the window lives. If it's always in front or if it's back, against the back, opacity might be another one.
Okay.
So, thanks.
All right. Do you have any plans of implementing the start menu or the taskbar or the system tray as gadgets available in the sidebar?
There's no current plans to make any, the goal with Sidebar was to integrate really well with the shell. It becomes a part of the shell experience, and so it integrates with the taskbar, and so it's themable, etc. But there aren't current plans to replace like the taskbar or portions of the taskbar with the Sidebar.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Are there any programming limitations on the fully per pixel alpha blended versions of the WPF ones? Because we had been pushing for controls, content, that type of thing. So we've been pushing Avalon team for that, and they kept saying no.
I'm actually going to defer to the WPF team. All these orange shirts, they're really good at answering those kinds of questions. So you might want to have that conversation with them. So not the best person.
Thank you. The limitation there is that you won't get a smooth anti-aliased edge around it. When you're on Vista, that has the new desktop window manager, and that's able to actually handle alpha. There's some tricks you have to do with Avalon that you can come by the Ask the Expert session. Excuse me, Ask the Experts session tonight at 6:30, and we can go into some details of how to do that. But it's definitely possible to make non-rectangular windows. On XP, not fully alpha blended. On Longhorn, it depends what you're trying to do, and so I'm gonna, when you come by, I'll refer you to the guy that's the expert on that who can tell you exactly what you can and can't do.
So just a combination of developer direction and user experience question here, that the sidebar and the system tray have a lot of things in common with each other, right? Except the sidebar is big, beautiful, and new, and the system tray is tiny, crowded, and difficult to use. And so the couple of questions that I have are, number one, as a user potentially of the operating system at some point, I now have two places that do almost exactly the same task. They show me information without me needing to go and find it, right? Or they maintain a long-running task or some operation that I don't need to interact with on a regular basis. And so it's basically the same, the same thing with different levels of attractiveness. They relate to each other because what's to prevent the problems of the system tray, which are legend, right? I mean, that's why they hide now, because there's so much stuff in the system tray. Why is that not going to happen to the sidebar? I mean, you know, I've heard 7 different ideas for, oh man, I'm going to make this cool thing and it's going to go up there, but it's only this tall, right?
Sure.
I mean, unless my monitor is going to be that big, I'm not going to be able to fit it all.
There's
and then
not,
as a developer,
yeah.
how do we decide where to put this stuff? I mean, what's going to constrain us from going, oh man, I'm going to take all my sys-tray stuff and I'm going to move it up into the sidebar, and that's what I'm going to do because it's really awesome. And that's going to degrade the utility of the sidebar from the user. So it seems like there's a lot of stuff swirling around in there.
Well, I kind of step back a little bit and think, you know, in my opinion, users king. It's all about personalization and what I want to do with my desktop. And we're trying to find ways to really allow you to take full advantage of the, you know, even with the sidebar, it's a minimal set of real estate. And so we're looking at features. I didn't show it, but we have the ability to go into overflow. So if you drag in, once your sidebar fills up, you drag in another gadget, you know, it'll move to another pane. And you can quickly navigate between those panes. But you know, nothing's prohibiting you from building a gadget that basically it displays information that you also get from task tray icons. So if you want to build a battery meter, you could build a battery meter or a network thing. It's all about just letting the users choose how they want to display and organize their information.
So the one thing I'd add on that too is, you know, the sidebar, we have a little more manageability. You saw the part depictor. The user gets to choose what's on there, and you know, if you enable that to, you know, I don't think we have this feature today. You can correct me, but there's no programmatic way to force a gadget to be there. So the gadgets that are showing down the side are going to be useful. The users are going to choose those.
How do you decide what gadgets are on there? I mean,
the user decides.
The user chooses, but you're writing that information somewhere.
I'm
which
sorry?
means that you must be writing the information somewhere, which means nefarious developers like a bunch of us can figure out how to write that stuff out, right?
So developers you can't programmatically add a gadget to someone else's sidebar.
He's saying that they could hack because they're on the box, they're running code. I mean, it's a fair point, but you know, I think, you know, we'll have to think about that some more. I'll be honest. You know, there's already a lot of nefarious things you can do other than pushing a gadget into the sidebar if you're running code in the user system. And if you're not going to respect the user's choice, if your code's going to be that kind of code, I think you've probably got other bigger, grandiose issues to tackle on the user side.
Welcome to the internet.
Well, if I may make a comment on that, that same problem happens in smartphones right now. But it's not really a problem because it's up to the user. You can push it to your start menu.
Top menu, yeah.
The startup PC. But it's a click. It's a click away. And if it fills up, things don't show up in the limited space, and then it's up to the user, and then just you click it off and on, and seems to be working for them.
Good feedback.
Okay, I'm back. So you were saying how using the DHTML model to make a widget, you're using the Internet Explorer security zone settings. Now, which URL are you going to use to like parse that information from the security zone? Are you going to use the one in the XML file, or are you going to use the one in the actual DHTML? Because the Sesame Street thing could say Sesame Street in the XML and then porn in the DHTML.
It's actually a feature still under design, and I'm not total security expert, but.
Yeah. We left them at home to keep designing it, actually.
Okay. I think we are out of time, but
Hey,
I
David.
really... one more.
Sorry. Hi, David.
Hey.
I have 2 questions. I just extracted from your session that it will be not shipping with Vista. It will be a download or something?
No, so Sidebar will ship with Vista.
Okay, that's a very good thing, because otherwise we have trouble deciding between the tray and the sidebar. If the sidebar's not there, it goes empty. And the second thing is, if it ships with Vista, my second question is basically 64-bit. You're fully supporting 64-bit in all flavors?
So yeah, we absolutely test on 64-bit and make sure that it works.
Yeah, these are my main concern. It has to ship with Vista, otherwise developers will have to download the runtime or something for the sidebar, and the second is 64-bit. All right, thanks.
Hey, I really appreciate everyone's attention, and sorry for the rough start.
Quick question, is it on by default in Vista?
It's still TBD. You know, we're really like watching like perf and everything else, and the goal is to make it on by default so that users can see that it's there. So.